I think we're ready.
Welcome to Liberation Lighthouse, where we light up a path out of the darkness by creating a safe space to talk about, to learn, to integrate, to move through trauma, PTSD, depression, suicide, the joys in life, absolute joys in life. On today's episode, we're going to go further into some of the tools for your toolkit that can help you with connecting with yourself, can help you integrate these traumas. The tools that we're going to go into in this one are breath work, and we're also going to go into Tai Chi and Qigong, sometimes called Qigong or Qigong. Some of the lesser known tools, in some ways related to meditation, yoga, there's definitely some overlap, and there's some places that they are vastly different as well. Before we jump in, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that was a beautiful intro. I really enjoyed that. Yes, we are going into breath work and a little Tai Chi and Qigong. Like I mentioned before during the yoga episode, that's episode number 9, I was tricked into breath work and meditation by yoga. I didn't realize that's what I was doing until it was too late, and I was doing it. So definitely something to keep in mind. Um, we have a presentation today as well. We'll be going into and I apologize for that.
Welcome to the
Straight
presentation.
into breath work. Episode 10.
Episode 10. Look at this. We're getting better and better. Like
Yeah.
the whole full screen, the presentation showing up. Like, we're so cool.
Nice. So there's a couple of different types of breath works out there.
May I? I'm so sorry.
Please go ahead.
The one thing I did want to add in just before breath work, like we're going to go through all the breath works. Rod's done an incredible job at putting together a presentation. We can go into the depth of like what they are, how they are, what's different about them, what's unique, where they can apply, what tools to use when. But right before then, what I felt might be useful was to just talk about like why. Why does breath work? Why should you even pay attention to it, right? It's breathing. Like, okay, I know how to breathe. Yes and no. It's something that I felt before. I really discounted breathwork for a long time. And just to be honest, it's now becoming at the forefront of a lot of the work that I do. Whether you're talking about like personal development work, clearing out this nervous system, all the stuffs. Breathwork has moved from, kind of like the also ran like little thingamajob to going through and being a really key tool, one of the primary tools now in what I do. So breathing, as we know, okay, so we breathe, great. And we'll talk later on in the episode about some of the challenges or chronic issues that we can have with breathing, what's different from what we do now versus when we're a kid. But at the base level, here's something to understand that I believe is really helpful. Breathing is one of the few systems in the body that is both under conscious and unconscious control and directly linked to the basic nervous system, right? The reason it's linked to the basic nervous system is because if you don't breathe, you die, right? So the body has to be able to breathe even when you're not paying attention to it. So, most of the time we walk through our day, we don't really think about breathing. Breathing just happens. Whether we're breathing well or we're not breathing well, it doesn't matter. We're just unconsciously breathing most of the time. And you can also take conscious control of your breath, right? And so what that means is there's this little space of access to the nervous system for something that is linked to survival that you have some conscious control over. And so by utilizing that control, you can have an effect on the very basic, the deepest levels of the nervous system. Talking about neurotransmitters, hormones, the vagal nerve, the basic reptilian nervous system, as well as higher levels of the nervous system as well. So that is why it's so powerful.
Got a question for you right there, and I apologize for if I'm sidetracking here, but
No.
the vagal nerve. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that was definitely new to me. I'm still trying to figure that part out. What is the vagal nerve? What does it do for us? Why should we care?
There are some resources that I can put into the show notes that
Mhm.
are even better at describing this. Right, polyvagal theory is the theory and the biological, sociological work that ties to this. And so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I just understand what I've read and I've put it into practice and I've had benefits, and other people that I've helped have as well. So there's a nerve in the body, and I get these mixed up, but there's a nerve that kind of like goes up the back into the nervous system, and one that kind of like comes down the front into like the chest cavity. But essentially, the vagal nerve is associated with whether the body feels safe or not, whether you're in the fight or flight, anxious, like active, like systems and way of being, right? You could be either in fight or flight, like I need to get some to run, I need to fight, I need, like, again, like it's that instinctual reaction, or even just active. There's a lot of things on my mind. I need to get things done. I don't have like time to just rest. And then you have rest and digest. Rest and digest is when the body goes into recovery. It's when the nervous system begins processing and allowing things through. It's when your body actually digests food more efficiently. It's when the body begins to release hormones that allow for the rebuilding of cells, rebuilding of neurons, all of that stuff. And so being able to have access to the vagal nerve helps you control whether your basic nervous system believes that you are in this active or possibly fight or flight, or the rest and digest stage. And that's one of the ways. So like if you figure most of the times when we're at least a little bit anxious, if not then triggered, we're in this fight or flight or active mode. And what we're trying to do is turn that and switch over to the rest and digest mode so that we can feel safe, so that we can exhale, so the body can repair itself. So emotions can run through and be processed because it feels safe to do so. That's the power of the vagal nerve.
Wow. One nerve does all of that.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a conglomeration of nerves and everything else
Mhm.
that's called the vagal nerve. Again, not a doctor, but the more I have come to understand it, my first experience with really understanding it. Thank you. I think I covered this briefly in the last episode, episode 9. But that Zazen meditation that I did with Dr. Doug Brackman and Randy Kelly, the ex-Navy SEAL, that
Mhm.
involved Zazen meditation and then shooting. It was the first time that I had sat down and literally within 30 to 90 seconds, I felt a shift in my body. And I didn't understand what it was at the time. It literally felt like I had sunk in, like I just clunked into, I just got shivers saying this, but I clunked into like my body, and I felt a level of basic nervous system safety that I hadn't before.
Hmm.
And I came to understand, talking with him later on, that that's what that was. Essentially, having an effect upon the vagal nerve meant that the nervous system at that base level was like, and so, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So let's see. Do we need to cover everything? Did we cover everything on the slide? Breathing, conscious and
I believe
unconscious.
so. Yeah,
Okay.
just the power of it is this is literally one of the most powerful ways that you have to consciously affect your nervous system. And we're going to get into this. It actually goes in really well to holotropic breathing, which is the first type of breathing techniques.
Okay.
Um, the one thing that I will add, and then I'll let you run through, is holotropic
Sure.
breathing is typically one of the more advanced techniques. It
Mhm.
usually isn't where people start, but it is also one of the most powerful. So holotropic breathing and what can happen with holotropic breathing, because you are hyperoxygenating the body, because you are affecting the nervous system, because you're releasing specific neurotransmitters that come with that, can be as powerful as a medicine experience. So, and I'm talking about psychedelic medicines, right? Literally as powerful. I have had some experiences with breath work that are on that same level, even a little higher, because I just felt so present and clear as well, um, in terms of having that effect. And what I love about that is breathing can't be taken away from you, right? You can breathe, whether you are in your apartment, whether you, like, if Chris, for some reason, ended up on some desert island, and there was nothing there but coconuts for me to eat, and I was surviving off of coconuts, and then I, made a friend out of my little volleyball ball, Wilson, then I could still breathe. And I love that. It's can't be made illegal. It can't be restricted. You have access to it everywhere, and it is literally one of the most powerful techniques.
Could you describe the sensation of getting into the states just by breathing?
So they're each a bit different. And again, breathwork is on the forefront of what I'm learning now. So
Mhm,
we're going to go through like other people to take a look at and get to know deeper in the later portion of this presentation. Dan Brule is one of the people that I appreciate most because he's done an incredible amount of research. Really,
mhm,
Dan Brule is phenomenal at this. But a lot of people have heard also like Wim Hof breathing, etc. Right there, it's becoming more and more prominent. Um, some of the breathing techniques, again, because they all behave a little differently in the body. Holotropic breathing, the experience for me is it's like I'm breathing, and because there's a certain amount of hyperventilation and stuff that's going on with it, um, for me, it's like easy, 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 and then it begins to feel challenging. And I do often have the sensation of it feels like my jaw begins to lock up a little bit.
mhm,
Sometimes my hands can like begin to claw in a little bit, and that's strange but normal. When you're hyper oxygenating the body, this is one of the things that can happen. Right? Nothing's going wrong. Nothing is bad. And after you've hyper oxygenated, there are breath holds and you exhale completely and then you hold your breath for an extended period of time, what feels like sometimes forever, but is just longer than you're used to. Um, when you're hyperoxygenated, most people can hold their breath a really long time, sometimes as little as 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes as long as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. Right? People have gone incredible amounts of time with this. You usually feel like you need to breathe around the 45 1 minute mark, like somewhere around there, and you can just be with it. And what happens is in that hold, there are neurotransmitters and there's a shift in the nervous system that happens, and there is this incredible peacefulness, like just peace that flows through, that you can feel running through your body. Your experience may differ, just like medicine, everybody has a different experience. But for me, it's this peacefulness that runs through my entire body. And
mhm,
there's a clarity. It's like when I need to ask a question and I have trouble understanding or figuring things out, like, what should I do now? Or I've got this tough decision, or what's going wrong, or oh, have I got this headache, like etc. In that state, it's like you are connected, you are clear with yourself, you can ask a question, get answers like that, and
mhm,
it feels like you're in touch with your greater self, your greater consciousness, the that beautiful thing that you can feel on an endorphin high after a run or on a really awesome walk out in nature or a deep meditation. It's like that, but for me, like tenfold, possibly even more.
wow. There's also rebirthing breath work. Have you had any experience with this type?
I haven't had this one specifically. What I do know is this one and some of the ones that we're going to continue here or go over here shortly
Mhm,
are some of the techniques that are really focused on how to help the nervous system release emotional energy, release traumas, release that stuff that's been stored in from either early childhood or later in life traumatic experiences.
yeah.
So the reason we're going to share a bunch of them and go through them is because it's like meditation. Again, episode 9, go back, you can listen to it. I tried a whole bunch of types of meditation before I found the first one, the one I just described, Zazen, that just clunked in. And so with this, my recommendation would be try the different types, feel them, see what works for you. Just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. A different one may work for you and you might find more effective. And it may shift and change over your journey. So we want you to know all the tools, want you to just have a familiarity with them. And then it's about exploring. The other piece that I know that you and I talked about, Rob, when we were talking about this is
Mhm,
even though this is linked to your base nervous system, right? And
mhm,
so we'll talk later about some of the things that can come up because of that. It's also safe, right? As long as you're not doing something that involves like a bag around your head, which do not do. Um, like that is bad. And the only reason I'm saying that is because some people will link in breath work with nitrous oxide or other types of substances. Don't go down that route, right? This is just breath work. you're open, etc.
Yeah.
If you were to like not breathe for an extended period of time and you had this incredible will that would push things beyond the limit, which some of you absolutely do, I don't, not in terms of breath work yet, you would just pass out. And then you would begin breathing normally and you'd be fine. And there'd be no ill effects, right? So it can feel very, very challenging. And there isn't a downside to practicing this.
Don't, like Chris said, don't put a bag over your head.
Don't do it in water.
Don't choke
Um,
yourself with a belt in the closet. Yeah,
yeah.
we've lost a few actors and artists by doing
But
that.
so jokes aside, right? Like that's why the
Yeah,
reason that became a thing is because that asphyxiation, the changing of blood flow to the brain, whether you're hyper oxygenating or hypo, like getting less oxygen because you're closing things off, like those create very, very specific brain states, consciousness states, etc. And so again, it is a reality and a sad joke. But the
yeah,
reason it's become powerful is because it is such an effect on the nervous system.
yeah. Yeah. So, going a little bit into the rebirthing breath work, let me just read the slide. This type of breath work is also known as conscious energy breathing. It is based on the premise that all humans carry with them a trauma from birth. After allegedly re experiencing his own birth in his bathtub, Leonard Orr was inspired to help others find some of that inner peace. The goal of rebirthing is to help people release energy blockages that have been stored in the body and mind due to suppressed trauma. In treatment, participants are asked to lay down, relax, breathe normally through the use of conscious connected circular breathing. Inhibition surface, the tension of past traumas are then illuminated. Deep relaxation is used to promote brain waves that leads to the release of subconscious issues and pent up energies. Again, this is just one form of many that deals with breath work.
Yeah, and to this, like there's some things around there that may sound strange. It's perfectly like normal if they do. Some of these things sounded strange to me. So like okay, like birth trauma and all this stuff.
Right.
Just to share something and maybe normalize things a little bit. As I went further and further down my own path, I ended up with a re-experiencing of a traumatic event that from my experience of it, like as much as I could make sense of it, etc., happened in the womb, right? Which is, if you would have told me this before, I've been like, what you been smoking, right? But I wasn't smoking anything. I was completely sober, going through meditation, etc., and I re-experienced what felt like that. Whether it actually came from the womb or not doesn't matter. Somewhere in the nervous system and how my brain was making sense of it felt that way. And so there can be some really, really early life experiences, right? In the womb, at birth, at the first, especially the first 7 years of age, that create these deep patterns that this type of breath work and other techniques can help to release.
Definitely. Let's see now. Clarity breath work. This type of breath work therapy is based on many of the tenets of rebirthing breath work, but it does not solely focus on the trauma of birth. Clarity breath work addresses any and all issues that hinder a healthy flow of energy and breath. It is based on the idea that most people do not breathe to their full capacity. The main goal of clarity breathwork practitioners is to teach people how to breathe fully. This may release the emotional energy that keeps them stuck. Therapy begins with an in depth interview about present concerns and past experiences. Sessions include in depth intuitive counseling, somatic exploration, and a 1 hour of circular connected breathing practice.
So that's where, with these different breathing practices, some of them are happen over a longer period of time and are very peaceful and easy. It's almost like you get in the same breathing pattern and you just do it long enough. It's like it becomes almost trance like, meditative like. And some of them, like holotropic, we talked about earlier, involve a faster and faster breaths, right? And so you get to the point where you're doing full inhales, full exhales at an accelerated pace and takes more effort. And that's why, again, like everyone will feel different to you and it's worth exploring. The little tidbit I believe that I can add here that's just maybe helpful is that I literally just had the biggest brain fart, and I've just come teach people how to fully breathe. Um, Rod said earlier that he got sidelined, like backdoored into breath work as a result of the yoga and stuff that he did. I actually got like backdoored into breath work through acting when I was going to school for acting, directing, etc. And in acting, you have to learn how to project. And one of the things, I literally had a class that was on this. You have to learn how to use your breathing and support your voice and everything else. But what you come to learn, and those of you who are watching the video may see this a bit, but we breathe in our chest typically. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into some of the chronic stuff. But we breathe up here. But you also have belly breathing. You breathe into your belly, again, more full breathing. And then you have these things called intercostals. Intercostals are the sides of the rib cage that kind of like expand in and out. And so as you get deeper and deeper with actual super deep, full breaths, you're not just breathing into your belly. So it's not shallow chest breathing. You're not just into your belly, but you begin to expand your chest using the intercostals. And you end up with like a breathing capacity that is way larger than what you're used to, which means fewer breaths to be able to have the same level of oxygen. And because you're breathing at a pace that isn't as rapid, the body believes it's safe and the nervous system begins to down tune and deregulate into a rest and digest.
Very interesting. I do find myself going through a lot of shallow breathing, especially when I'm driving. If I concentrate on it and start paying attention, I notice that I'll start breathing through my belly
Mm-hmm.
and take the deep breaths. But I find myself just like, am I breathing? Am I holding my breath? Sometimes I do.
I
All
do a
right.
lot.
Yeah.
I'm aware of this conscious. I've been trained in this. And when I like go unconscious, I find that I breathe shallowly and into the chest all the time.
Yeah. It's it's something that we're both working on. Okay.
Yeah.
So biodynamic breathwork, fully known as biodynamic breath and trauma release symptom. This modality integrates 6 elements. It seeks to release tension, support natural healing, and structure internal systems. The categories of biodynamic breathwork are breath, movement, sound, touch, emotion, and meditation. This approach recognizes trauma is stored in both psychological and physical ways. The body keeps the score, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Trauma may be stored through emotional patterns, chronic stress, and blocked energy. Biodynamic breathwork aims to restore the balance between these systems. So, treatment sessions might incorporate exercises like deep connected breathing and revisiting ingrained memories and sensations. It might also include music or sound therapy, vocalization, kind of like when in yoga you're doing the whole
Mm-hmm.
body shaking, and even dance therapy. I'm going to butcher his name. Gitten Tonkov, founder of the Biodynamic Breathwork and Trauma Release System, says that the therapy focuses on self transformation. People become more capable of supporting others to do the same. It is not knowledge based on academics, it is based on creating space and relaxation in your physical body. So it's coming from within.
Yeah, and this is where you begin to see some of the overlap. So, like some breathing techniques, we'll go into some simple ones later on in this episode. But some of the ones like holotropic is almost like a breathing experience, right? Whereas this, you're beginning to see it's involving movement, it's involving music, it's involving sound. It becomes multidimensional, and that's where you begin to see even more overlap between yoga, meditation, breath work, and they can happen and be used in unison.
I always think of the runner's high. You know,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that runs long distances, my wife included, where they get that state of calm. You know, as you're running, as you're pushing your body, as your joints and muscles are aching, and you cross this threshold, where everything just kind of stops and becomes clear. You know, that runner's high. And I've often wondered if this is a combination of the breath, the meditation because you're just kind of concentrating on the road ahead, or letting your mind do whatever it needs to do.
Hmm.
So when I read about this, when I was doing the little research on this, that's what came to my mind. That walking meditation, that running meditation type deal.
100%. I
Yeah.
believe you made the absolute right connection there. And that's why, like, say somebody who wants to be more active and is like, look, I can't even sit still to meditate. How am I going to do this breath work?
Right.
Um, Number one, you can, and you can do it while moving. So you don't have to just sit still and do it. And the second is you might have a greater capacity. I shared breath work with a gentleman, ex-military, ex-Navy SEAL, and he took to it, and probably because of his own training that he had had before, right? That's what I would assume from. He took to it faster than anybody I've ever seen. So some of the training you've had in life before, whether it was yoga, whether it's your military training, whether it's swimming, whether it's something that you've done, may actually have given you some of the skills to like take on breath work and become go from novice to intermediate or even adept very, very quickly.
Yeah. Let's see. And there's so many different types that we didn't have time, and didn't have the bandwidth, if you would, to put them all in here and go over all of them. So I'm just gonna touch base on all of them real quick. Integrative breath work, shamanic breath work, vivation, Zen yoga breath work, transformational breath work. Any thoughts on any of these, Chris?
Uh, some of these I have a little bit of experience with. A lot of them, honestly, I don't yet.
Mhm.
Zen yoga breathwork, I have experience with. Again, pulling the systems together, I appreciate. Um, the one that I neglected to put on here, and I apologize, but I mentioned earlier, is also like Wim Hof breathing. Right? A lot of people know Wim Hof breathing. I breathe, and then I can sit in a freezing tub with ice, and I can be warm, right, or at least not feel cold.
Right.
Um, that's the same way. It's a different type of breathing, fire breath. There's a lot of different like names for it. Wim Hof has created and branded his own. But you can regulate the nervous system and literally up level your metabolism in order to put off a lot of heat and to be able to be comfortable in very adverse situations. So, I the advice that I shared earlier, I just believe in, man. It's like just explore. If you're looking, and we'll get to this in a moment, like where do I begin? Dan Brule, I think, has one of the better foundations for this, but there's a lot of places, and we'll get into that near the end of the breathwork section.
But definitely the fire breathing. I'm reminded of kind of like that whichever Batman movie where he ends up in the middle of ice and snow everywhere, and he's training with a bunch of monks, and it's
That's
like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's where it came
it
from. It was
it
a Tibetan practice, actually.
yeah, it feels almost like a superpower, where if trained properly, you can obtain what feels like superpowers, where you can,
Like
yeah,
legitimate superpowers. Like
legitimate
there are
superpowers.
stories of monks sitting in, Tibet gets very cold, high elevation, sitting out in the snow and putting off so much heat from their body that there's literally like a melted ring around them,
Yeah,
right? So this is where, again, breath work, you're connecting with the basic nervous system, right? And the basic nervous system then controls rest and digest, fight or flight, the heart rate, neurotransmitters, everything. This is one of the biggest, greatest doorways into the nervous system. And that's why it can feel like you have superpowers.
definitely. Yeah. And let's see, some of the concerns, hyperventilation being the main one. If you become hyperventilated, symptoms can include clouded vision, cognitive changes. You feel a little dopey, a little drowsy, decreased blood flow to the brain, feeling dizzy, heart palpitations, muscle spasms, ringing in the ears, tingling of the extremities, uh, different phobias, claustrophobia, asphyxiophobia, asphyxiation,
Asphyxiation. Yeah.
asphyxiation, asphyxiophobia. I think everybody's afraid of that one. Uh,
I'm afraid of asphyxes.
yes, definitely. But again, unless you're putting a bag over your head or choking yourself with a belt, tied to the closet, as soon as you pass out, the beauty of it is you begin breathing again.
And to add to this, so I've experienced many of these in the course of breathwork. And like in the early days, Some of them are really disconcerting, but I have had deep rooted fears. Everybody does, but for whatever reason, they were very sensitive for me around claustrophobia and around drowning asphyxiation. Don't know why, but just really. And so a lot of these fears got brought up in the course of breath work and challenges with it as well. Um, Again, like it depends on your perspective and whether you, the reason we're sharing these concerns is to just prepare you that some of these things may happen. And if they happen, you're going to be okay. So when I'm doing breath work, number one is I'm almost always laying down personally when I do breath work. And so like there's no place for me to fall if I were to pass out. Um, I haven't, even with the depth of breath work that I've gone to, I haven't passed out. And when I've talked to people who are way more experienced about this than I am, some of what they've shared is, um, let's say that you have 100% capacity for breath. And at that 100% mark, that's the point where you're going to pass out and come to, right? Most people, myself included, begin feeling the strong urges at like only 30% of that capacity. And so there's a long, long way to go um, before there's actually a challenge. It feels uncomfortable. I've had fears come up near immediately. And when that fear came up, the claustrophobia, the asphyxiation, then my nervous system clamped up. And then I wanted to breathe even more. And it was challenging, like really challenging to be with. And as I sat with it, and I was just like, and I'm safe, and it's okay, and we're going to sit with this, and we're going to be with this, and I'm safe, and it's okay. And then I could feel the nervous system beginning to release. But a lot of this, like I do breath work most mornings. And what I'm finding is that capacity that I have just continues to increase. It's like I'm training the nervous system that we are safe.
Hmm.
And by doing it over and over again and hitting this edge, and because it's uncomfortable, it's a lot like taking a cold shower. You know what they say, like be uncomfortable, take a cold shower every morning, which can be physiologically very beneficial, or cold plunge or whatever. But this uncomfortableness and hitting this every day, and then like literally reassuring yourself, your mind, like little kid inside, your nervous system, whatever it is, how you visualize it, that you are safe and you're there and everything's going to be okay. And then it is okay. You're literally retraining yourself to know that, and it gets easier and easier and easier.
Good. Thank you. Uh, breathing, chronic issues, common issues are shallow chest breathing that both Chris and I have discussed, and holding your breath that tends to happen. Um,
Yeah.
I am guilty of both of these. And like I said, I never noticed until I just kind of started paying attention to what was going on within my body. And I tend to do the shallow breathing mostly when I'm driving. The breath holding, I'm very surprised at how much I actually hold my breath.
Oh, me too.
It's one of those things. And
Yeah.
um,
One of the reasons it again has an effect is because, excuse me, when you do these things, shallow breathing, chest breathing, that is associated with the state of the body that is in anxiety, that is preparing for fight or flight, or even beginning to move that way. So by breathing that way, it's just happening unconsciously, happens for Rod, happens for me, may happen for you. Um, you're telling your body and nervous system that there's something to be on alert for, right? And so your body just stays in this alert stage. And then the neurotransmitters related with that, cortisol, adrenaline, etc., like are ramped up as a result of that. And the longer term you do that, the more chronic and the more challenges it can be. And so just to become aware, like just check in with yourself a few times a day. All right. Like right now, I'm here on the show with you. And quite honestly, even though I know these things, I am breathing more into the chest than I'm breathing into my belly right now. And I'm
hmm,
aware of this, and it's happening. And so I can take conscious control and I can breathe a little further down, and I can feel literally in a couple of breaths now that everything's beginning to release.
yes.
And the same with breath holding. Like that reaction is an anxious reaction, right? It's the preparation for something, a preparation for be alert, be quiet. Where is the lion? the be ready to run, fight or flight. And so just realizing that you're doing this gives you an indication of, on a baseline, day to day, moment to moment, um, how is your nervous system doing and in what state are you?
Right. It's odd that I find myself doing these things mostly when I'm driving because I live in a big city and there's a lot of drivers and I'm running around with usually a kid in the back seat. So it definitely I could see where it's coming from. I am definitely in that alert mode. But it's interesting to just kind of like become aware of it.
Yes. Well, awareness, right? And
Yeah.
we've talked about this before. Awareness becomes the key that you use to then begin to shift and change. Because if you're not aware, then there's nothing to shift or change. But
Right.
once you become aware of it, that is the entry point. That's the wedge in the door to begin to shift and change these things. Along these lines, just got a message from Terry. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you
Huh.
being here with us. She says, I've never thought about a regular practice as training or reassuring the body that it's okay. Always thought of it as more preemptive. It's an encouraging idea. And this is something that I learned from my friend, Dr. Doug Brackman, to some degree, and something that I have then just made my own practice. And what I realized was it's like my awareness can be twofold, and I can be aware that, Chris up here, and not just in the head, but let's say like observer Chris talking about meditation and stuff, realizes the world's safe. There's like nothing I need to worry about right now. Everything is actually okay. Matter of fact, things are really damn good. And my body is like, "Ugh," right? And so what I began doing with that, and the reason this has become a literal daily practice for me, is because I realized that was a schism. That was this fragmentation of my nervous system and body feeling one way, and me and my mind and my emotions, even in my heart, feeling another. And so it feels like soothing a child. I don't have any kids, but I love rods, and I have these nieces and nephews. And I think about, like, okay, they're scared. Something is going on. Something has frightened them. How would I be with them? And it's a very different quality. And it's like, oh, I get it. There's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not broken. You're not any of those things. You're just scared.
And it's normal.
And it's normal.
Yeah.
And now through this like process, it almost feels like reparenting. Um, you begin to bring everything back into coherence so that you as an entire being, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, if you choose to go that route, all of it comes into coherence. And then you begin to have an experience, not the schism of multiple experiences, or
Right.
not just locked into fight or flight. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. So, simple practices within breathwork include belly breathing, which is, as we explained, letting the breath go all the way in and expanding your belly. I know we're all trying to look thin. I know we're all trying to get that beach body, and you're sucking your gut in, but that's not healthy. You actually want the air to go in there to expand your belly, to include that the upper part of the belly all the way into your chest so that you do have that deep breath. It's a soothing mechanism.
Yeah.
Um,
So the practice where I learned how to do this even better was laying down. And if you need to have something under your knees or you want to have your knees bent, that's fine. But literally put your hand on your chest and breathe and see if you can keep your chest without going up or down. Literally no movement in your chest and only movement in your belly. And I know somebody, I'm not going to call them out by name right now, but I know somebody who experienced this with me at Viver Vision earlier this year. And she could not initially do that type of breathing. Like her nervous system was locked up and couldn't like do that. And it took a concerted effort to not move the chest and to only breathe into the belly. And what you're doing is you're training the muscles and the nervous system to allow that. So that's the basic thing. Sit down, do it for a few minutes. It's all you need to do. And you will be amazed at the difference that you feel mentally, physically, emotionally.
And for those of us that are not aware what Viver Vision is, Viver Vision.
I'll get into it. It's an Indonesian martial art that's
Mhm.
tied with breath work, and for me has been one of the most powerful methods to regulate the nervous system and to come into that coherence that I've been talking about.
And from what I've seen on the YouTube videos that have Vivra VIVRA Vision, it really does look like Jedi training. I swear to God, it
So
they
yeah,
do some amazing things.
the we'll talk about it, and I'll share a little bit more when we get to it in the
Its
section.
own
But
episode.
there's party tricks you get with it, and then there's like the real benefit,
Yeah.
and understanding both is helpful.
See, there's also box breathing, where you breathe for the same amount of seconds in as you would out, with a slight hold on the in and on the out.
Yeah. So the normal pattern that I was taught was 4 4 4
Yeah.
4, and it's so breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. And usually it's that last hold after you've exhaled completely. It's the most challenging. I didn't exhale completely because I still have to talk. But that's the one that's most challenging. But if you just do that 4 4 4 4 breathing, like this was taught, I believe, back in even World War I, World War II.
Mhm.
It's a powerful, powerful method to just regulate the nervous system and bring it back to presence and calmness.
Yeah. My understanding is its intention was to calm you down in times of chaos.
Yeah, it does that incredibly well. Literally, within a few breaths, you feel the shift.
Yeah.
Sometimes in as little as one or two, like full boxes, you feel the difference. And over the course of 5 minutes, for me, in really challenging situations, up to 10 minutes, I can feel a dramatic shift in how I feel, being triggered, nervous system, all of that.
Yeah. There's also talk about the vagus nerve, rest and digest. We went a little bit into this. 4-6 breathing, adding pauses between the inhale and the exhale. Chris?
Yeah, so very similar to box breathing, and it can expand to box breathing.
Hmm.
But the simple version of this, and I was taught this by Heart Math, which we talked a little bit about in the last episode, episode 9, around meditation.
Hmm.
But basically, it's a form of breathing, and it's a pattern that both calms the nervous system and then brings the brain and the nervous system up here and the nervous system around the heart. Strangely enough, we have neurons in our heart, right? Like legitimately, this is science. There's neurons in the heart, and so you begin to bring those two into coherence, and that's the pattern that brings you into the alpha wave state, that brings you able to release and process trauma. Um, but the very basic version of this is if you inhale a longer period than usual, but shorter than your exhale, right? So a shorter inhale, longer exhale. So breathe in 4, and then exhale for 6. And just continue that. And whatever pattern feels right for you, you could inhale for 4, exhale for 8. If you're really in a stress situation, you can only, in the beginning, inhale for 2 and exhale for 4. That's fine. The key is typically you inhale with your nose, you exhale with your mouth. Your inhale is shorter than your exhale, but both are getting longer and longer as you calm down. And then, if you choose, you can begin adding holds, just like with box breathing. So you might inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6, hold for 2. And then you can get longer and longer. You can inhale for 8, hold for 12, etc., and just go to wherever it feels comfortable for you. Um, just like box breathing, some techniques work different for each person. I find that the 4-6 breathing tends to bring me into peace and coherence a little faster than box breathing does, but you might be different. Just try them out. That's the power of it. And it's as simple as that. That's all that you have to do.
And the hummingbird breath.
Yeah. So this is one that I learned from this beautiful man in Taos. And he is a shamanic grandfather. And he taught a very simple form of breathing. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard what it was, I was kind of like, I know breath work. I don't think it's going to work. And where it surprised me, and I'll describe it in just a moment, I had an experience that was on the levels of what I get to through holotropic breathing, but I didn't have to push hard as I feel like I do with holotropic breathing. Holotropic breathing feels very active, and you begin to breathe faster and faster, and then the body doesn't want to, but you're forcing it. You're faster and faster and faster, and at times it can feel like a challenge for me. And this one was a super simple. Essentially, it's 13 breaths long, although this goes up to like 33 breaths, and then you do 8 cycles of 33 breaths at the longest version of this. But the simplest version, the one that he took me through that kind of blew my mind, was it was just 13 breaths. And all it was 13 breaths in a row of in for 8. I'm sorry, it wasn't in for 8. Excuse me. It was like in, out, in, out. And I'm breathing into my belly, and I'm going all the way in and all the way out, right? And there's a activeness to this, but I'm not pushing. It's just being active with it. And I don't have to go super fast like holotropic breathing or fire breathing. And I literally began to feel that centeredness, that peaceness, that everything feels peaceful right now, and I'm connected with like my greater consciousness, with making like good decisions, all of that in 13 breaths. All it took was 13 breaths. And so again, it's a full breath in, so you're filling your belly, and you're doing it like that fast, and then out.
Does the speed matter, or just as fast as you can take it in?
It's not as fast. So you're not pushing like holotropic breath to do it as fast as you can, but you're also not going slow. So over the course of a couple of seconds, when you get into holotropic breathing, literally it'll be like you get really, really fast with it, right?
Kind of like a Le Mans type deal where you see on TV. It's like breathe, yeah.
Yeah. So this is an active pace. So like the pace that I remember was, and then exhale.
Any holds in between?
Mm-mm.
No, just inhale, exhale.
Inhale, exhale 13 times. It was literally it. And because he was counting for us, this was a benefit. And maybe this may be something where we can reach out to him, and maybe he'll be on the show with us and guide us through this process, because it was powerful. But him counting out the breaths means that I didn't have to, and I just got to release into the experience. And I was blown away by it, because it was such an easy and graceful way to get to that same place that I had hit through way more active breathing techniques.
I got to say, I hadn't heard of Hummingbird Breath, and so I was just going to simply let you take the reins on this one and ask questions as I went along. I'm actually very curious about it now. I think I'm.
Yeah, I really. I'll end up reaching out, and I can't make any promises because we're still doing this, but I know that you and I, Rod, would benefit from it, and then being able to share that with other people as we go forth with techniques, I think would be helpful as well.
Definitely so. All right. So guided sessions. Okay. For those of you that would like to get a little bit more into breath work, you can practice through guided recordings, programs. There's some reputable organizations out there that can help you pace yourself, get the most out of your breath work. This will be available in the show notes. There is something called www.somabreath.com. They have a free 40-minute course. They also have the paid classes online and paid classes near you. You just give them your zip code, and the website will actually find breathwork studios near you. Of course, there's Dan Brule. The book is Just Breathe. The website is breathmastery.com. Just Breathe, beautiful book. Lots of good information. He touches on a lot more types of breath work than we would have time here for. It's a great read. Viver Vision.
So just for that real quick, the reason that you might want to go down Dan Brule and that path is because um, uh, Dan Brule is one of the people who's gone out, just like with Shinzen Young, when I talked about last year, somebody who's gone out and explored all the meditation techniques. Dan Brule is that for breath work. So he's gone out and explored all of them. And in the book, Just Breathe, it's a concise, and there's an audible version as well. It's a concise view into what breath work is, super, super simple practices, a 21-day challenge workshop type thing to acclimate yourself and grow into breath work. But it gives you the breadth of what's out there and what's possible. It isn't just one technique. He's actually showing you the whole range of techniques.
What I liked about the book is he actually talks about how it's used in day-to-day life for athletes, for boxers, for deep dive swimmers, and just for normal people in general. Keeping that vagal nerve system, if you would, that feeling of calm. Just it can become, and I wish I need to incorporate more of this into my own life, but it's a calming, soothing thing. And when you start your day, or when you are stressed and you know how to bring yourself into a calm place, it makes a huge difference in how you live your life. It really does.
Yeah. And again, available to you anytime, anywhere.
Except space. There's no air in space.
In your spacesuit. You can
in
do
your
it in your
sp-
spacesuit.
in your spacesuit.
Yeah.
There's something out there called Vibra Vision, Vibra Vision.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what
Chris
we
got to
talked
go
about
through it.
before. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a practice that started as an Indonesian martial art. It's run by
Mhm.
two beautiful men, Mike and Nate, here in Ogden, Utah. Classes can happen usually here, but also sometimes they're around the world in different places. And this sounds strange, but I have experienced this. It puts you in touch with your nervous system and being able to sense things at a higher level so that you can do strange things. I call these the party tricks, such as somebody can put different colored bean bags out in front of you and with your eyes closed and a mask. You literally cannot see. I've done this. I've experienced it, right? They can say, okay, find the yellow one. And by sensing and everything else, after having done this breath work and connecting, you can sense it and find it. It also centers the nervous system, brings you into higher levels of consciousness, all that stuff. The party trick is I can walk through like a little maze of poles and not hit a pole with my eyes closed and with a face mask on, a blindfold on, and I can find these little colored bean bags and find the color with my eyes closed. That's the party tricks. It's awesome and everything else, but the real benefit is it is literally one of the most powerful ways to access and center consciousness that I've ever experienced. So I'm a huge, huge fan of those guys. I don't get anything for recommending them. There's no affiliate program, anything else. I just highly, highly believe in them. I've done level 1. I'm doing level 2 next year, and possibly even level 3 next year.
And along with those party tricks, that got me thinking a little bit. I go to an occupational therapist for one of my many issues, but my uh, my therapist, this beautiful man, he practices Reiki, and
Ah,
oddly enough, my one of my first sessions with him, he hovered his hand slightly over my arm and found exactly the spot that was giving me issues. And I'm like, Brujo, it's like, witch doctor, what are you doing here?
yep,
How did you do that? I'm like totally in awe of how he did it. And he's like, it's odd, but he took a few classes, and after a while, you can actually detect senses for energies, whatever you want to call it. But for him, it literally felt like warmth and cold,
yeah,
heat. And so, by running his fingers over my arm, um, he could kind of sense which sections were cooler without touching them, and which sections were warmer. And because the sections that he felt were warmer are usually that way because the muscle is being strained, or the nerve is being, it's under some kind of strain. he could actually pinpoint the areas that needed attention.
Hmm.
And to me, that felt like truly like a Jedi mind trick, where somebody is able to do that. Um, I've
Yeah.
seen it done. I've seen the Viver Vision stuff on YouTube. And the first thought to my head was like, oh, that's got to be, they got to be cheating. They can't,
Yep.
you can't do that, right?
I had to experience it to believe it, because I was
Right.
like, I knew these people and I knew how genuine Mike and Nate were, and they were still in the side of my head, maybe a little bit in the back. This voice, I
Yeah.
was like, bullshit, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
had to experience it to, like, for my mind to go, what the f, and to, like, um, expand the possibilities of awareness and what my mind would accept. And the way I feel about it is, you're just gaining access to more data. Like, our unconscious mind is processing billions of bits of data every second. And the conscious mind is literally only like 1,000 or 2,000 bits of data every second. So there's tons of data coming through that you're taking in, and only a certain amount of it's making it to the conscious mind. So
Right.
you're expanding your ability to understand, like, all the data coming in, and to then like, feel it and sense it in some way that is useful. That's how I think and perceive these things.
And it really does look like a superpower to the outside eye that hasn't had any experience with this. I mean, how can anybody possibly have these senses?
Yep.
And the odd thing is, we all do.
Yep. We all
We
do.
all do. And it's just a matter of learning how to tap into them to bring up these capabilities that seem almost supernatural to us. And
Yeah.
and it's just, I don't know. It's amazing to me. It
It
really
is.
is.
And again, you don't have to take my word for it. I didn't take other people's word for it. Experiment. Be curious. Try it for yourself. Like, make up your own mind based off of your own experiences. I am confident in that recommendation.
Yeah. So, other breathwork resources online, there's again www.somabreath.com. There's something called HTTPS open with a hyphen in between each one.com. Live classes, these are actual links. If I hover my mouse over them, I can actually click on it and it'll take you to uh, these are again different studios where breath work has been done, and it's currently being done. So if you're in California, Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, New York, or Virginia, um, these are local breathwork studios that you can access if you're near them, um, and get started on your own path.
Yeah. And I forgot to include that, this is on me, in
Mhm.
the presentation. There's an app out there. It's called Othership Breathwork. It's iOS and Android. And it does that. It takes you through guided breathworks as well, and is one that I would recommend. So
Definitely.
Othership Breathwork. It'll be in the show notes, and it's my fault for not including it in the presentation.
Alrighty, and that brings us to a close. We finished breathwork. Um, How do you feel? Anything else you want to discuss before we call it an episode?
No, I really believe that we've gone well into it. The only thing I believe I'm going to reiterate, is worth reiterating, is
Hmm.
breath work is a lot like we described meditation in episode 9. There's a lot of different forms of it. Some of
Yeah,
them calm the nervous system. Some of them excite the nervous system. Some of them downregulate the metabolism. Some of them upregulate the metabolism. The reason in exploring each one and finding out which tools work right for you right now is so that you can use the one that's most effective now, right?
definitely.
It doesn't matter what's worked for me. Doesn't matter what's worked for Rod, although those can be good guides. What matters is which one works for you. So be curious, go in with an open mind, test them out, be honest with yourself about what happens and what the effects are. And if at some points, like, there is some challenge in some of the breath work, like I shared, and I mean this, breath work has brought up very visceral fears within me, that took me into slightly triggered states until I began to calm my nervous system more and more around, like, claustrophobia, or around breathing and everything else. And what I found is, as I worked through those, I was literally releasing emotional stored energy from my nervous system. And as that got worked through, as we went through with what Terry said earlier, right, that you can begin to train or reassure your body and your nervous system that you are safe, that begins to take hold, and your experience goes more and more. And you don't have to push it to 11 every time, right? You can literally just push it to 6, push it to 7, whatever that is for you, and know that you've done perfectly and beautiful. And next time, like, do 6 and 7 again. That's fine. And at some point, maybe you're ready for a 7 or an 8, and you can take this up and begin to ramp this up while being kind with yourself, while not I need to be Chris and I got to take this to the end, right?
Right.
That's how I would approach this. It's how I have approached this. And it has become one of the absolute main tools in my toolkit for both emotional wellness, for my own consciousness journey, for releasing trauma, for regulating the nervous system, all of those things.
Definitely. Alrighty, folks. I know we promised you Tai Chi and Qigong, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. We are going to go ahead and push those out to next week. So join us again next Friday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We will be talking about Tai Chi and Qigong as another modality that we can use to help calm us down and help us deal with trauma and everything that goes along with it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Be well, and big love.
Until next time.